What's up everyone, this is Tranquil Toys back with another review, and this time taking a look at the new Tekken 8 King Game Dimensions Bandai line. And this figure looks really good. I remember seeing the original promotional images and the figure looked really good in those images, and it looks just as good in person here, the final product does. So really excited to get this figure and to review it for you guys. Even though this is his new design in Tekken 8, I still like this character and of course a lot of the other characters in Tekken, and I already have the rest of the figures released in this line, and I'll do a comparison between all the figures towards the end of the video. But let's see how good this figure really is. It was a little bit more expensive than the other figures in this line, so I think the box looks a little bit more special than the other ones. You can see it's got that nice insert in the back that says King, Anger of the Beast. That's pretty cool. And the lettering on the side of the box has a reflective material that's also pretty cool. It's kind of a low quality image of the figure on the back. I actually think the final product looks a lot better than this picture on the back. Then you have a picture of the character from the game, and a big thing that's missing is like his necklace thing and some of the little trinkets that he has on his arms. Not really a big fan of his Tekken 8 design, but I am a fan of this character, which is why I picked it up. So the way the figure looks is, like I said before, it looks really nice. The shading, this is a new thing for these figures. He's got shading on his muscles and a little bit on his arms and on his back, which is nice. Usually sometimes cheaper figures skip out on the shading on the back of the figure. One thing they sort of did skip out on is shading the legs, this arm wrap, and the gloves. They didn't really shade that, but if you wanted to customize it, you could definitely do a black wash over that and make some of the detail come out better. Speaking of detail, the sculpt work is really nice. There's texture on his sleeve and on the gloves. They turn out pretty nice. This elbow pad is sculpted. It has some writing in there. It says Anger of the Beast and King right under it, but it looks like they forgot to add the T in Beast, so it just says Anger of the Bees. So they kind of messed up on that, but it's still cool. They sculpted the elbow pad. They forgot to paint the Velcro of the black glove. That would be easy to paint and fix that though. And then his tights, they have texture all around, on the sides and on the top. He's got his tail with a nice print on it, and then he's got his name on this side. It says King, and he's got a letter K that's kind of like sculpted in there. It's not just painted on. The knee pads are sculpted on as well, so that's really cool. It's not like the Mattel wrestling figures where they have the rubber knee pads. This is actually sculpted in, and then it's got some designs on the knee pads itself. And again, I feel like a wash would have been able to bring some of the detail out, but it still looks good nonetheless. The boots, the laces are sculpted in. This design on the side is painted in, but you got the wrinkles in the boots. The bottom of the boot, which also looks really good. And then coming to the head sculpt, it's probably the best part of the figure. They did a really good job. It's textured, it's got paint on top of that, and it looks really good. The mouth is painted nicely, it's not sloppy. Even the black paint inside the mouth is also done very well. The eyes are really good. This figure has a lot of colors. It's not 100% accurate to the in-game design, but I think it's a good representation of the figure, and they added in the colors that are necessary. This wasn't exclusive to GameStop, so it was priced a little bit higher, but I'm pretty satisfied with the work and the quality from this figure, so I don't mind paying that higher price. Now in terms of accessories, he does come with only 2 extra hands, which are 2 pointing hands for either side, left and right, and the same level of detail and sculpt. Could have been a little bit more paint on there, but still not too bad. Then he comes with a punching effect. This is also done pretty nicely, and it does fit. One kind of weird thing is that there's a hole at the end of it. Maybe it's supposed to go onto the ball peg in the wrist. I don't know, we'll see about that in a second. Then of course he does come with a stand and a logo. All the figures come with that. I think it's kind of lame. Like, it's not the best accessory they could have added in. You know, more hands would have been cool. Maybe a cape. That's one of the biggest things I think this figure is missing. I do have some capes that I'm going to put on the figure later towards the end of the video. This logo is probably the best ones that we've seen, and I think it looks the coolest. It's definitely good for a Tekken display. You know, you can put that in front of all the figures or above all the figures or something. So the articulation is pretty much the same as the rest of the figures in the line. There's not anything special, but because of the sculpt of the head, it does hinder articulation a little bit. So he looks down that far and doesn't really look up that much. So mostly down and then left and right. It also comes off pretty easily. And then you also have that second neck articulation there. And then of course, you know, we're going to do some head swaps later. Shoulders are the same as the rest of the figures. You get good range. so it's nice. You can also shift it up and down, and swivel it 360. Bicep swivel is fine. Double elbows, it's a decent amount of range. Could have been a little bit more, but you would have sacrificed the sculpt of the muscle here. So I think that's a good trade-off. Or the hinged ball joints, so you can hinge it up and down. And then you swivel the ball joint, then you can go in and out. And so it also swivels all around. Now in the torso articulation, it's pretty good. You go back that far with the upper, with the chest articulation, and then go down that far, so a pretty good amount. Then with the lower torso articulation, goes back that far, and then not really that much down. Side to side a little bit, not too much, and then of course you can swivel on that. Now one thing that really bothers me is the top of the pants right here. When you're standing him up straight, you can see there's a dip in the sculpt right here, which is kind of annoying because it creates this gap, which you can pretty much always see, and it's hard to cover up without making his posture look weird. So right now he's standing straight and you can still see the gap. It's not, I mean, it's not that big, but if you were to move him even a little bit, it makes the gap worse. And if you want to cover it completely, you have to shift him forward, but he's not standing up straight, so to make him stand up straight, you move his upper torso articulation backwards. Then it makes it look like he's got scoliosis. So I'm really not a fan of how they designed that part of the figure. I can overlook it, but it is kind of an amateurish mistake in my opinion. The legs are on a drop down hinge, so you can hinge them up and down, and with that they go forward that far. Not really a whole lot of clearance up here on the sculpt, and they go out that far. And there's a little bit of swivel at the top of the joint there, not a whole lot, mostly forward movement. Double knees, which are a little bit past 90 degrees, not too bad, could have been a little bit better. No boot swivel, which is kind of unfortunate. I feel like they could have added that in there. Ankle articulation is not the best. There's really not enough clearance to get a lot of movement out of there. And last thing is you can move his tail around. It's only swivel. I haven't tried popping it out, but it does look like it's pretty secure in there. So with all that articulation, you can get some pretty cool poses. I have high hopes for the rest of the figures coming out. I have no idea who they're going to release next, but I'm kind of nervous if they do a female character, and I hope they do, but I'm kind of nervous that if they do, they're really going to mess it up. Not really sure which characters they're going to release next. I imagine they're going to release Nina Williams, Asuka Kazama. That's my favorite female character from Tekken. That would be cool if they did a good job on it. If they're going to do a bad job, I would still probably get it, but I would be really disappointed if that figure didn't turn out well. Let me know what figures you want to see next in this line. And I'm also curious to know what you guys think about how good they would do on a female figure. So the hole in the punching effect does go through the wrist joint, but I'm not sure if that's really what they intended, because it just looks really odd and it makes his arm look short. So that's probably not what they intended. So again, I'm not sure what that's for. You guys let me know if you have any ideas about that. And the effect fits over the fist pretty easily and snug, so that's not a problem putting that on there. And it looks pretty good. Now we'll get into comparisons, and here we're going to see how tall this figure is. So here he is next to some of the other figures in the same line. Here's Jin Kazama in his prison outfit. This is a custom I made. If you saw my review, you'd understand why he's like this, and if you don't know, go watch my review on him. And he is a little bit shorter than King. King should be a lot bigger, I think. You guys let me know what you think. Here he is next to Heihachi. Previously, Heihachi was my favorite. He's still pretty close to being my favorite, but I think I'm liking this King a little bit better than Heihachi. So here's what they look like next to each other. And the last figure from this line is Kazuya. And here's what he looks like next to King. Now I'll do some size comparisons with other lines. Here he is next to Figuarts Lloyd Forger. And I'll put Anya Forger there so you can see what this looks like. Maybe she can be one of the kids in King's orphanage. Then of course we can't forget about Yor Forger. Here he is next to Resident Evil 4 Patriot Studios Leon. Here's Storm Collectibles Mai Shiranui. Of course the height is not even close to being accurate, but it is pretty cool seeing these two characters next to each other. And I can't wait for the Terry from Toonshi Studios. I'm really hoping that line really takes off and they make all the characters from King of Fighters. Here he is next to Nendroid Hakase. This might be another kid in his orphanage. Here he is next to a basic McFarlane figure. This is the Blue Beetle. And you can see that they're pretty much the same height. Here he is next to Marvel Legends Joe Fixit. Here he is next to Fig Arts Vegeta. Here he is next to Black Suit Spider-Man from Marvel Legends. So that gives you an idea of what he looks like next to a basic Marvel Legends figure. And here's a female Marvel Legends Tigra. They're both the same species, right? Tigers, or maybe not. Are they both cheetahs? No, King is a jaguar, right? Last but not least, here is He-Man. And he's a little bit taller than King. So now we'll do some head swaps and maybe I'll throw some clothes on him, depending on what I can come up with. So here's Blue Beetle's head on King's body. Kind of weird, but I don't know, could be a nice base for a custom or something. And here's the reverse of that. Here's He-Man's head on the body. This looks really cool, the skin tones match. Then the reverse of that also looks kind of interesting. I guess it could work. Maybe if you heat this up, it'll actually go on there. But right now, it's just kind of sitting there. But it's not too bad. And then, of course, any head from this Tekken line is swappable with each other. So here's Heihachi's head on there. And then you can also swap some of the other parts, like the legs, the feet, the hands, obviously, the arms, the torsos. And I'll show you a little bit of that. Here's King's legs on the Heihachi torso. And King's head doesn't really fit on there. And then here's the reverse of that. Looks pretty weird. So it doesn't really work with Kazuya's legs because he's got this plastic that's coming around the ball joint here. So King's torso doesn't actually go on there. So that's not going to work. King's boots on Jin's legs, or at least the bottom of his boot. So, you know, I wanted to give this Jin like actual sneakers. Still doesn't look right, but that gives you an idea what that looks like. A couple more head swaps. Here's Punisher's head. This is a Mezco Punisher on King's body. Here's a Mattel Brock Lesnar head, Mattel Hulk Hogan head, Masterverse Slush head. Now he kind of looks like an Ultimate Muscle wrestler. Masterverse Ram Man, Marvel Legends Movie Venom. He's Jean-Claude Van Damme. Pretty sick. And the last thing I'll show you is a couple different capes that you can use for this figure. This is a cape from a Mattel wrestling figure. I think it was the Legends Vader, the old one. And this is pretty accurate to something that he would wear from the games, so I think this looks really cool. Here's another cape from a Star Wars Black Series figure. Doesn't really sit right, but I think it does look kind of cool. And here's some cool clothing accessories that you can put on him also. Here's a jacket or a sweater. Looks pretty cool. And here he is with a different sweater and pants. And I think this works really well for the character. The only thing that could be better is the pants. I know I have black pants. That's the same kind of pants as these, but are black. I'm not sure where they are. I know one of my figures has them on. You guys let me know what you think about that. And that's pretty much everything for this review, guys. That's all I have to say. Really strong release. I really like the figure. This is probably a strong contender for best figure of the year, maybe. We'll see what happens in the future. But this is up there so far on my list. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this figure. Let me know what you think about this review. I said everything that I needed to say. I gotta go. So I'll see you in the next one.